official Kelly File, face-to-face with the candidates. I'm Megyn Kelly. We are coming to you tonight live from the battleground state of Florida, where in less than 1 week, Republican voters here and in 4 other states will cast their ballots in what some are calling Super Tuesday 2. We're here at a stadium in Hialeah, Florida, and I'm joined on the stage with Senator Marco Rubio. Tonight's broadcast is part of our Fox News primetime lineup of town halls with the last 4 standing GOP candidates. Greta Van Susteren interviewed Ohio Governor John Kasich earlier this evening. I interviewed Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Sean Hannity spoke with frontrunner Donald Trump. And now I'm here with Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, thanks so much for doing this.
Welcome to Hialeah, Florida.
It's great to be here. So it's very windy out here, so we have our stick mics so you guys can hear us and the folks at home can. I want to talk to you about what happened last night, because it was a tough night for your campaign. It's been a tough week for your campaign, and the big question on a lot of people's minds today is, are you preparing to drop out?
No. You know, what's funny about that? I don't know what's happened in this campaign. Every week someone else is supposed to be dropping out. I am not dropping out. I'm fighting all the way through, and we're going to win Florida. We're going to win Florida.
Now, the latest polls show that you're not winning in Florida. So there was a Fox News poll that was just released tonight that shows Donald Trump has a 23-point lead. There was a Quinnipiac poll that shows he's more than doubling you, 45 for him, 22 for you. CNN, same thing. He's got a 16-point lead over you. So how can you win here?
Well, first of all, those polls are not accurate. And I'm telling you that from the understanding we have of the state. And number 2, it would be irrelevant. The fact of the matter is the only poll that counts is the one they're going to take on Tuesday when they count the votes that these people are going to cast. And we're going to win in Florida. And we're going to work hard every day as we have leading up to this campaign. Look, you mentioned last night and the other day, our primary focus has been on Florida now for the last 8 to 10 days. And the reason why is, if you look at the delegate map, it makes all the sense in the world. Florida is going to award 99 delegates to one person, the winner in Florida. Even if you win by 1 vote, you take all 99 of those delegates. So you look at a state with that many delegates all at once, a place where I'm from, a place where we have a great campaign team. That's what we're focusing on right now. We win Florida on Tuesday, and this election changes completely, and it gives us the momentum we need to go forward and win the nomination.
There was a report today, confirmed by the Bush team, that Jeb Bush was meeting with you today and that he's meeting with Governor Kasich, and he's going to meet with Ted Cruz as well, all of the non-Trump Republican candidates, basically. Did you meet with Governor Bush today?
And not only did I meet with him, I've talked to him several times since the end of the campaign, and he's my friend. We'll always be friends. Even in the time that he was in the race, I never said anything negative about him. I have tremendous respect and admiration for him. I don't discuss private conversations, of course, but let me just say I think he's a phenomenal person, probably the greatest governor in Florida's history, Jeb Bush.
Now, we all know that Jeb Bush does not want Donald Trump to win this Republican nomination.
Well, he's not alone.
He's made that very clear.
I think most Republicans don't want Donald Trump to win the nomination.
Do you think, can I just ask you, without revealing the substance of the conversation, whether it was a strategy meeting or whether it was about the possibility of an endorsement?
No, look, I'd love to have his support. I don't know what if he's even going to support anyone, and I wouldn't be presumptuous to say it would be me. But it was a meeting about the way 2 people that have known each other for 20 years would meet and talk. And I've known him for that long, and it's beyond that. You know, I don't want to go into the details of any personal conversations. There's nothing mysterious. I just don't think it's good policy to discuss personal conversations in front of, 5 million people tonight.
What do you mean? It's just the 2 of us here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the big rumor that's out there, and some of the folks here were wondering about this too, is the possibility of a so-called unity ticket between you and Ted Cruz. Those who see you and Cruz splitting the vote, the 2 of you together could possibly surpass Donald Trump in a lot of these states if you joined, is the belief by many. Is that a possibility?
Well, look, I think that's the kind of drama that makes it interesting in TV to speculate about. Those kinds of things very rarely work. I can just tell you I'm a candidate for president. I'm going to be on the ballot on Tuesday here in Florida. I'm going to campaign hard through Tuesday here in Florida. I'm focused on being the president of the United States. And that's my goal, and I think that's Ted's goal, too. And, at some point, we're all going to team up. We're all going to be on the same team, I hope. And I honestly don't believe Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. I continue to believe it's going to be me, and it's going to have to start here in Florida. And that's what I'm focused on. I haven't talked to anybody about that. I'm not interested in that. I'm running for president. I'm focused 100% on Florida. Our goal is to win here on Tuesday night, and that's the only thing I'm talking about.
So just to follow up, the reports, because now there's been one from CNN, there's been one from CBS, and there's been one from Fox Business suggesting that you have had discussions with people on your team about dropping out of this race before Florida and possibly even talking to the Cruz camp.
That is 100% categorically false. I have never discussed dropping out with anyone on my team or anyone on the planet Earth. It is not going, or anyone on any planet for that matter. I am not dropping out of this race. We're going to be in this race through. We're going to fight this thing through Tuesday. We're going to win Florida, and we're going to go on.
Do you feel like some in the media or aligned with other camps are trying to force you out or trying to bully you out of the race?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. Look, every time that someone has a disappointing couple days in the campaign trail, there's been a rumor, oh, so-and-so's dropping out, or, they did it to Ben Carson in Iowa, or, so-and-so is talking about this or that. These people just make things up today, and they go to the media and they say it, and it gets reported because everyone wants to be first, and if it isn't true, they move on and pretend that they never reported it. It's categorically false. I am going to fight here in Florida 100% between now and Tuesday evening. I believe that fight is going to lead us to victory here.
Now, what if you don't win Florida? Then how does the calculation change?
I would say a couple things. Obviously, it won't be a good night if we don't win Florida. And the second thing I would say is this campaign is always going to come down to this. Megyn, even if I had won 5 states last night or 3 states a week ago, I'd still have to win Florida. And I think the nominee has to win Florida. You can't be the Republican nominee if you don't win Florida, and I am going to do everything I can to win this state. These people here in the state have never given up on me. I am not going to give up on them.
What did you think when you saw Ted Cruz come down here, sort of late in the game, and set up offices in Florida? Does he have any chance here?
Well, I would tell you that the only real campaign apparatus in Florida is ours. But I would add this. Let's suppose someone likes Ted Cruz or John Kasich for that matter. A vote for them is a vote for Trump because I'm the only one that can beat Donald Trump in Florida. And so even if you like John Kasich or Ted Cruz, if you don't want Donald Trump to win Florida, you have to vote for me. I am the only one that has a reasonable chance of even beating him. So they have to vote for me.
A lot of people are saying that Trump's going to take Florida, and after that, Marco Rubio's kind of out of the race. I want to know what the senator thinks about comments like that, and if it's really over for him after that.
If you think that he can't win Florida, would that make you not vote for him?
No, I would vote for Marco Rubio regardless of what's going to happen. I don't think Donald Trump is capable of being the president of the United States, and I think Rubio's our last hope.
Welcome back now to our Kelly Files special, face-to-face with the candidates. Coming to you tonight from Hialeah, Florida, with Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, great to see you.
Thank you.
So that question was from Veronica right here in the front row, and you've answered it to some extent, saying that you're in this race, and we'll see if you don't win Florida. That's a different story. But if you're not dropping out before Florida, you say. Let's talk about Donald Trump, though, because Veronica's feeling was she's with you no matter what, and a lot of people in the Republican Party feel that way. And you've heard, of course, about the Never Trump movement. You said, notwithstanding that movement and your concerns about him as the nominee or the president, that you would still support him in a general election. Why? How can you say all the things you've said about him and then say that?
Well, I think it's a reflection of how bad Hillary Clinton is. I mean, I can't imagine voting for Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders for that matter, and I never would. But the fact that you even have to ask that question tells you the problem with Donald Trump's candidacy. He is unacceptable to a significant percentage of Republicans who will not turn out and vote if he's the nominee and will lose. So I don't want Hillary Clinton to be president, but I'm running for president, and I would say to the people that support Donald Trump, look, I understand people are angry and frustrated about the direction of our country, about changes in our culture, about what Barack Obama has done. I understand it, I really do. Anger can motivate you, but it shouldn't define us. And anger is not a plan. Anger is not going to solve our problems. Anger is not going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Anger is not going to rebuild our military. Anger is not going to cut taxes and roll back regulations. Anger is not going to make America a better place to create better paying jobs for millions of Americans who are struggling. And anger isn't going to protect the Constitution. We need real ideas to do that. And my problem with his candidacy is he refuses to answer significant and serious policy questions. These voters deserve to know that. I want to have a policy debate, but he refuses to engage in ideas, and I think that's dangerous because if you elect someone who doesn't tell you what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, how do you hold them accountable? And what do we know? How do you know what you're voting for?
So the people in the Republican Party who, they say their conscience won't allow them to vote for Donald Trump if he becomes the nominee, who are pushing for a third-party candidate for anyone, even perhaps someone like you or somebody who was in this race as a Republican, to run as a third-party candidate if you shouldn't get the nomination. You say they're on the wrong course?
Well, I understand why they feel that way. I really do. I'm not telling you that's an easy decision. That question you ask is tough. He makes it very tough in the things he says and the way he behaves. We have a candidate for president that uses profanity. We have a candidate for president that has attacked a disabled journalist, women, minorities. I mean, he makes it very difficult to be supportive of him. That said, you asked me the question at that debate, or I was asked the question. The bottom line is I cannot imagine ever supporting Hillary Clinton. I don't think that's a reflection of Donald Trump being good. I think that's a reflection of how bad Hillary Clinton would be.
Let's talk about the debates. First of all, what do you think of Chris Christie?
I like Chris. I do. I think he's a good governor in New Jersey, and I like him a lot.
Were you surprised to see him come out and endorse Trump?
I mean, you're not going to get every endorsement, and people have a right to endorse whoever they want. I respect that. I've gotten my share of endorsements. I have the governor of Arkansas, the governor of South Carolina, the former governor of Louisiana, the governor of New Mexico, so the governor of Tennessee. We have great endorsements. Everyone's going to have their endorsements, and I respect that.
Wait, we saw you at that one CNN a couple of weeks ago, and you were all fired up. I mean, it was like a new Senator Rubio, right? It was like you were out there, you were jabbing, you were punching, you were moving. The Fox News debate, you were actually very sick. A lot of people didn't know this, but you were very ill, and you were a little bit more subdued. What accounted for the change? Because as you know, you got a little dirty on the campaign. You got a little naughty out on the campaign.
Yeah, well, look. First of all, that's not who I am, and
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, let me say
a little bit.
There are two separate things here. On the issues that have to do with Trump University, which he didn't tell the truth about, on the issues that have to do with his business dealings and all these jobs that he refuses to bring back from overseas, those are legitimate issues. On the other stuff that has to do with personal stuff, I'd do it differently. I really would. And the reason my kids were embarrassed by it, my wife didn't like it, I don't think it reflects good. That's not who I am. That's not what my campaign is going to be about or will ever be about again. Yeah, I'd do it differently. I would. On the personal stuff. I'm not telling you he didn't deserve it. But that's not who I am. And that's not what I want to be. And I want to be a good example. I want my kids to be proud of me. And I don't think it reflected well on my faith. And so I felt bad about that. But on the other stuff that has to do with his business dealings and the fact that he's telling Americans that he's one thing when in fact he's not, those things are fair game. Not only are they fair game, people need to know that before they turn over our country to someone who isn't who he says he is.
A lot of people thought, media watchers, when you started to mix it up in that way, thought, this is a man who is, he is struggling with a media that Trump dominates. He says incendiary things and then he gets nonstop coverage 24/7. Have you felt that as a candidate in 2016?
There's no doubt about it. Well, listen, I gave a series of policy speeches throughout the year. I was lucky if it got a mention. He would use a bad word at a rally or ask people to pledge allegiance, you name it. Whatever he does, it dominates news coverage. You had the head of CBS about a week ago say, Donald Trump may not be good for America, but he's really good for CBS and our ratings. So yeah, reality TV has infected our politics. The culture has crossed over into our political debate, and the problem is that what's at stake here is the most important political office in the world, the commander-in-chief of the United States, the person that has the power to send our young men and women off to die in combat. That's what's at stake here, and it's become a reality TV show, and I think our country's going to regret this for a long time.
What did you make of the press conference that Trump had last night from Florida? It was an hour long. All of the cable networks covered it nonstop, beginning to end.
Listen, he is a master of manipulating the media to cover him. They cut in because they have no idea what he's going to say. Here's the sad indictment. I know you're in the media. I don't mean you. I just mean in general. Those couple days where I was saying, no, she's good. She's very good. But she's tough. She's tough. But those couple days that I was saying those things that I would do differently, every media outlet in America was cutting in live to my events. Every one of them, because they were hoping I would say something so they could cover it. That's how sad this has gotten. And it's unfair. The voters deserve better. They really do.
I want to ask you about Senator Cruz, because somebody who works for his campaign, and he says, look, we've got thousands of volunteers, and this person this wasn't sanctioned, but they repeated that report out in Hawaii about you getting ready to leave the race before Florida or being pressured to leave the race before Florida. He says, look, that wasn't me, and I don't stand by that. Your thoughts on it?
Well, if he says it wasn't him, then I'll believe him. It's happened multiple times now. It doesn't make a difference. Look, there are people out there trying to make a decision about how to vote, and I don't think it's fair to them to tell them something that isn't true. But I can just tell you, I've never talked to anybody about that. We are always going to be in this thing in Florida. We were always going to be on the ballot here. These people have supported me my entire life, and I'm going to give them a chance. to make me the nominee of the Republican Party, and that's not going to change.
Now, on the subject of debates, you have another one tomorrow night. This will be the last debate that you get to participate in before Florida, before your home state votes on Super Tuesday 2, as I like to call it. What will be your approach? What Marco Rubio do you think we're going to see tomorrow night?
Well, look, a lot of it depends on the questions. I try to answer the questions. If half the questions are about Donald Trump, then it's going to be dominated about that. I hope the questions are going to be about the national debt, national security, our relationship with Israel, how to defeat ISIS, how to get our economy growing again, how to deal with student loan debt, which is a huge problem in this country. Not a single question has been asked about that in any debate. What the next Supreme Court justice should look like. These are the issues that matter. And I wish these networks would ask more questions about that. I really do. I think the voters deserve to know that. They ask them in the Democratic debate. In our debate, it's all about, he said this about you, what do you say about him? Mm-hmm. And I just think that's unfortunate.
I will say, on behalf of the Fox News moderating team, we tried not to do too much of that, but the candidates have a way of spinning it the way they want to spin it when they get up there.
I understand.
They see an opportunity to slug it out. And some people have an appetite for that. But although after that debate, the feedback from voters was very negative about what they saw on stage. They didn't like to see the Republicans, even though they're trying to decide between you four, they don't like to see the really ugly slugfest.
And I don't like to be a part of it. I would much rather spend the entire debate debating the merits of my tax plan versus someone else's, the merits of my approach towards ISIS versus someone else's. I'd much rather spend debating why Donald Trump thinks we shouldn't stand with Israel, and I believe we should. I mean, I'd much rather talk about that, and I hope we'll have a chance to do that tomorrow.
Actually, we're going to have a chance to do that tonight as well, because one of the questions, actually two of the folks here tonight wanted to hear about Israel and what you'll do, and specifically raised the issue about, well, Trump said that he would remain neutral when it comes to trying to bargain on that deal. Not that he's not a supporter of Israel, but that he would remain neutral when it comes to trying to strike a peace deal in the Middle East.
I would like to know what Marco Rubio would specifically do to support Israel, especially right now. I mean, an American citizen was just killed in a terror attack, and I'd like to know what he would do to support Israel.
And welcome back to our special Kelly File, face-to-face with the candidates. Tonight, we are coming to you from Hialeah, Florida. Back with me now, Senator Rubio. And you just heard that question, Senator, about Israel and your approach as president with Israel.
Well, first, let's understand, Israel's not just another country. Israel was created for a very special purpose, to serve as the homeland for the Jewish people in the aftermath of the Holocaust. What Israel asks of the United States is just two things. Number one, that we support them in international forums, because Israel faces a historic challenge to their legitimacy. You have this international effort to delegitimize them. And two, they ask us that if they run out of weapons to defend themselves, that we resupply them. Both of these things have been put in doubt by this president. When I'm president, those things will never be in doubt. We will use our veto power at the United Nations to protect Israel, and we will rearm them every time they need to be able to defend themselves. And on my first day in office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with Israel's mortal enemy, the Ayatollah of Iran.
Now, you know the criticism of doing that. If we cancel the deal, we've already given them the money. We've already given them the carrots. And now we're going to impose the bad stuff on them, supposedly, with respect to this deal. And so if you cancel the deal, well, how does it hurt them?
Well, first of all, they may have received some of their frozen assets, but the bottom line is that what they're going to benefit from on an ongoing basis is the ability to conduct transactions and business with American and other Western companies. And so the bottom line is this. When I'm president of the United States, companies in the private sector is going to have to choose. They can do work in the American economy or they can do work in the Iranian economy, but they will not be able to do both until Iran allows a full inspection of their military sites and all of their facilities and can prove to the world that they are not building a nuclear weapon from which they will try to destroy Israel and threaten and blackmail the world.
Let's talk about visas. H-1B visas. This was brought up at the last debate. And this is basically a visa that would allow a highly skilled foreign worker to come into the United States and work here. And just so the viewers understand, Ted Cruz wanted to quintuple these, and then he reversed his position and now says he doesn't want to do that because the program's been abused. You've called for doubling these visas, but you want the jobs to have to stay open to Americans only for the first 6 months. Donald Trump said he was against these visas, and then he said he was for the visas, and then he said he was for the visas absolutely, and then the day after our last debate he says he's against the visas. So where do you stand on it now? Because they're very controversial. The workers at Disney who got fired, who had to train their replacements, say it's because of these visas.
Well, it's because of the way they're being abused. So here's what's happening. People don't realize this. The H-1B visa, the Disney and other companies, they're not hiring the workers directly. They're hiring a consulting firm who's hoarding up all of these visas. So what they're basically doing is they're outsourcing the tech job to an outsourcing firm. That firm then uses H-1Bs to bring in workers that don't even work for Disney. They work for the outsourcing firm, and that's how it's being abused.
But the indignity of it, I mean, just not to blow past it, because the testimony's been really heartfelt on Capitol Hill
we
from
should
people
not
who
allow these
talk about having to train their foreign replacements at a job they've held for decades.
And their argument is we've outsourced our tech division to this company. We should not allow those companies to hoard up these visas. Number two, it is illegal now. It is a violation of the program to use those visas to replace an American worker. It is illegal to do it now. And so two things. We should prevent these consulting companies from hoarding up H-1Bs so that companies can't be hiring them to then bring in workers because they're not direct employees. And number two, if you get caught abusing the program, you should be barred from ever using it again. We should enforce the laws that exist now, and we should close the loophole on the consulting firms.
What do you think? Immigration's obviously been a big issue in this campaign, and for you. Although when you look at the exit polls, and we get different numbers on how important it is to the Republican voters, but for some subset of Republican voters, it's very important. And many in the Republican field feel Senator Rubio, he betrayed Floridians on this issue. He said he'd go to Congress and that he would not support immigration reform, but then he went there and he did. Do you feel like that has haunted you in this campaign?
Because that's not an accurate assessment. What I said is I did not support blanket amnesty, that we weren't going to be handing out citizenship cards. I don't support that now. I never did. What I do support is dealing with this reality. It begins by enforcing our laws.
You also said you were not going to support a path to citizenship, which you did.
First of all, a special path, and I still don't support a special path. In essence, I think the most I'm willing to support, and I don't even know if the American people will go for it. I don't know if they'll support it. We're not going to ram it down their throats. But I don't think you should have a special process. The most I support is allowing people to have a work permit after the border is secured and all of that is proven. And then after 10 years, they can apply for a green card, but just like anybody else would, not through a special pathway. And you have to have a green card for 5 years before you can even apply for citizenship. So you're talking about a 25-year deal. Most of them won't even pursue it. But again, that's not a majority position in my party. The work permit might be the most you can do, but we're doing nothing when I'm president until we first prove to people that illegal immigration is under control. That is the lesson of 2013.
Who do you think will be tougher on immigration as president, you or Donald Trump?
Well, it's interesting. You know, Donald had an interview with the New York Times. He was asked about this at the debate, where he apparently shared that he had a lot of flexibility about immigration. But now he refuses to allow the New York Times to release the audio of that interview. So it's par for the course here, where I think you see someone that is saying one thing but is saying another to the electorate. People are angry about immigration. They've been told for 25 years that's going to be fixed and nothing happens, and Donald Trump is targeting that. And I understand why people are responding to it. But here's the point. You don't really know what his real views are on it. Just on the debate stage last week, he changed his position 3 times. And apparently, he told the New York Times something very differently than what he's telling voters now.
They're suggesting now that they're not sitting on some explosive revelation that would shock the conscience if it were released.
Well, I think it's very easy then. Let's just have him released. Because the New York Times would release him if he said to them, I'm okay with you releasing the contents of that interview. And it may not be explosive, but it's most certainly a lot more flexible than what he sounds like today. And by the way, at the last debate, when I outlined my position, he said he was fine with it, that he agreed with it. Donald Trump said that. So again, I think on this issue, no one understands it personally better than I do. My parents were immigrants. This is a community of immigrants. I know the good, the bad, and the ugly of this issue. It has to be dealt with in a responsible way that's good for America.
Let's talk about the military a bit, because that made some headlines as well. What we would do in order, what Trump would do in commanding the troops. He made an admission at the last debate that they would follow orders of his, even if they were illegal, because he's the commander-in-chief, and he would tell them to do it. But Trump realized the mistake in that the next day, and he walked it back. And many people feel that while it may have been a reckless thing to say at the debate, kudos to him for recognizing that and owning it and walking it back. Is your thoughts on that, and whether there's anything you want to walk back that you've said?
I mean, on policy, absolutely not.
On policy, yeah.
No. I mean, on that issue, good. I'm glad he walked it back, but that would be the bottom line anyway. Our men and women in uniform are some of the finest people in this country. They are never going to carry out an illegal order from a commander-in-chief. And by the way, on the issue of interrogation, I believe we should have enhanced interrogation techniques, and you can do that on a terrorist without torture or whatever people want to call it. You can. It's not the same, a terrorist is not the same as a criminal. When you are interrogating a criminal, you're trying to gather information to get a conviction at trial. When you're interrogating a terrorist, you're trying to gather information to prevent a future terrorist attack.
We don't do that anymore.
Well, we don't do it at all because they're closing Guantanamo. We don't capture terrorists, and if we do, they're not being interrogated. When I'm president, if we capture terrorists, they will be sent to Guantanamo.
And interrogated? I mean, that's the thing that's happened with Barack Obama, is that he's shut down the CIA black sites where we did this sort of enhanced interrogation, but there's no place where we question the terrorists. We just drone them.
Yeah,
and then now we don't really get the information. They die, but we don't get the information.
And by the way, when it comes to interrogation, the techniques should not be something that we are debating openly, because what happens with terrorists, they learn our techniques, they practice in evading those techniques. So interrogation is a very valuable tool, but it's not the only tool. I mean, you combine that with other things you match it up with information that other people have told you. It's a key part of a toolbox of intelligence tools that we need to prevent terrorist attacks.
What about Hillary Clinton? If you had to make a case against her, one of the criticisms people have of you is, how are you going to go after her when you also supported what we did in Libya and you were in favor of the Iraq war, and they feel that you have too much in common with her on foreign policy?
I actually did not support what they did in Libya. I wanted to do more than what they did. Remember, the term leading from behind came about as a result of Libya. And the argument the president made is, we're going to go in for 72 hours, do a few little things, and then walk away and leave everybody else to figure it out. My argument was, Gaddafi's going to fall. The Libyan people are going to get rid of him. The longer the civil war goes on, the more unstable that country's going to be afterwards.
And it is.
And the more likely it's going to be you're going to have terrorists there. He allowed it to become a protracted conflict because he led from behind. The record is clear.
Would you send ground troops there into Libya? U.S. ground troops?
Well, not for purposes of targeting ISIS, I do believe we need to conduct special operations on the ground. Ultimately, the ideal outcome...
Just special ops?
Well, because I don't think you invade Libya. I think the ideal outcome in Libya is that a true transitional, ultimately permanent government takes hold, and we should be helpful in that endeavor. There's only so much we can do. But what we don't want to see is a vacuum. That vacuum is being filled by ISIS.
Aren't we seeing that now?
We are, because they're completely unchallenged in Darna and the Sirte province. They're completely unchallenged. For them, it is prime operational space.
Stand by. Much, much more with Senator Marco Rubio.
When the recession hit, a lot of people were out of jobs, including my father, who had to, unfortunately, he volunteered at a homeless shelter and taught computer science classes, and that's how we made a living. There's a lot of people right now that don't have jobs and aren't living in the best situations, My question for Senator Rubio is this, There's a lot of politicians out there that say that they're going to create jobs. What is your plan specifically, to create these jobs and to help people get employed?
And welcome back to our special hour of the Kelly File. You could heard a question there, Senator Marco Rubio, from one of your constituents here in Florida, saying his dad was laid off.
Yeah.
And, all these politicians say that they're going to find a way to create jobs. They're all going to create jobs. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, it begins by having a president that understands that presidents don't create jobs, at least not outside of government. The private sector creates jobs. You're in Hialeah, Florida. The majority of the businesses here are small businesses. They started because someone risked money to start a business, and they create jobs when they grow. We need policies that make America the best place in the world to start a business and to grow it. So you go on my website, marcorubio.com, you'll see, number one, we have a comprehensive tax plan that, especially for businesses, rolls back taxes to a flat rate of 25%, allows businesses to immediately expense everything they invest in that business to encourage investment. We roll back regulations through a regulatory budget that I've proposed. We allow us to fully utilize our energy resources. We bring our debt under control, primarily by saving Social Security and Medicare. And we repeal and replace Obamacare, not just by talking about the lines around the states, but with a real plan that allows every American to control their own health care spending, whether it's health care money from your employer or a refundable tax credit that you will be able to use to fund health insurance in any way and form you want, whether it's comprehensive coverage, whether it's a health savings account, or a combination of that with a catastrophic hospitalization plan.
Question for you on the state of the GOP right now. I mean, the dominant story in this country right now is whether on Tuesday, March 15th, the Republican Party will end. Whether it is facing an existential crisis right now, given the divisions we're seeing within the party.
Well, I think if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, it will fracture the Republican Party in a very serious way. And I think it would fracture the conservative movement as well. Donald Trump does not pretend to be a conservative. His positions on many issues are not conservative. And I don't think that his voters are supporting him because he's a conservative. I acknowledge he has tapped into an anger and a frustration in this country against political correctness, against the abuses that are going on. I get that, and that's important. We should allow that sentiment to motivate us, but we can't let it define us. Conservatism is not about anger. At its best, conservatism is about a set of principles backed up by very specific ideas and always surrounded by a sense of real optimism that Americans can do anything. What we need is the chance to do it, and we can achieve anything.
Why do you think it's happening, though? I mean, if you look at the polls, even here in Florida, the people who are not in favor of you say, I'm ticked off at these politicians who say one thing and then do another. But why are we seeing this division between sort of these working class and middle class voters who feel like they have just been given short shrift year after year after year? And then do you think, who is it on the other side? Is it so-called party elites? Who is it?
Well, because they have been given short shrift. And I think the problem is for far too long, both parties, including the Republican Party, has basically said, you know what, we'll do whatever we want for 20 months, and then for 4 months we'll campaign, convince them we're really good, and then go back and do whatever we want. What's changed over the last few years now is people are following politics in real time, whether it's on Twitter, on social media, on Fox News. They're now seeing what's actually happening, and they're really angry about it. It started in 2010 with the Tea Party movement. It continued in 2014 with the election of a Republican majority, and I think it's reached its boiling point now here in this election cycle. And it's important for us to harness that, but we have to harness that as a motivator, not as something that defines us. Conservatism is not about anger and it's not about division. It is about a set of principles of limited government and free enterprise, real policy solutions, and the optimism that America is destined to be greater than ever.
Now, I know that you've said in this race you're the only one who can unite the party. It hasn't happened so far. And of course, we've heard the same message from John Kasich and to some extent from Ted Cruz and Donald Trump as well. But I want to ask you about John Kasich in particular and whether you think he says you should go. Do you say he should go?
Yeah, I don't know. Does this happen in every election where everyone's obsessed about who's going to leave? If you want someone out of the race,
but let's set the stage. The reason that this is being discussed is because the front runner of the Republican Party and the man who right now is the likely person to secure the nomination has about 35, maybe 40% in most of these states. When he wins these elections, he's winning 35 or so percent. And the majority of the Republicans are voting for somebody else.
Right.
So as we go forward, those other Republicans are saying, how is this happening? Is there still a chance for somebody else to win? And who is it? Oh, and the rest of the field needs to consolidate behind one person. And they're trying to figure out, I think earnestly, who that person should be.
Well, and I think voters will eventually help us figure that out. I can tell you this, and this should matter to people. If you look at every poll, I do better against Hillary Clinton than anyone else running. And there's a reason for that. Because I won't just unify the party, I'll grow it. We will take our conservative message to people that don't normally vote for us.
But this is your great frustration, I'm sure, because that's true. The polls show that you would beat her. Kasich also would beat her, according to the polls, and Cruz by a lesser margin, but still. And Trump, according to most of the polls, would not, but he says, I'm just getting started on her. However, you can't get to the general without winning the primaries.
I understand
and your record has been disappointing.
Yeah, and again, I mean, part of it, you look at this race has been very unusual. You had 17 people running. You remember the first debate we did with you guys.
It was like herding cats.
12 people up there. So it's been it's like a perfect storm. And very upset electorate at every institution in America. Virtually everyone who was rumored to be running for president actually ran for president. Dividing up votes against each other. And it's kind of gotten to this very unique, this is uncharted territory. We've never been here before. I can't tell you how it turns out other than the fact that no one will work harder over the next 6 days to win Florida than I'm going to work. And these people believe in me. We're going to deliver.
Would you encourage people who are in favor of Marco Rubio in the state of Ohio to vote for John Kasich?
I've heard that proposal. I'll let John Kasich make that suggestion. I have loyal people that have worked hard for us. I can tell you this, I'm the only one that can beat Donald Trump in Florida, and every poll would say that. And if you like Ted Cruz or you like John Kasich and you live in Florida, that's fine. But if you vote for them in Florida, you're voting for Donald Trump. If you are truly committed to denying Donald Trump 99 delegates in the state of Florida, then people that are voting for John Kasich or Ted Cruz, at least in Florida, need to vote for Marco Rubio. I'm the only one that has a chance to beat him.
All right, well, we are not far from Senator Rubio's hometown here in Florida. And up next, we're going to get personal with Marco Rubio. Don't go away.
I only want to tell the people that it's the most critical election that we are going through. Trump promises a lot, but he's going to accomplish nothing. Marco is proved to be a conservative, And we Cuban people don't give up. He will be there until the last moment. Marco Rubio is going to be in the fight.
That was one of Marco Rubio's most passionate supporters, a man who talked about what it was like to be Cuban and to grow up in South Florida. And after talking primaries, polls, and his fellow competitors, we want to talk about family with Senator Rubio. Senator, great to see you again.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this. Do you find it ironic that people paint you with the brush of being some sort of elitist, given your background and the way you grew up?
Well, I find that interesting in the sense that everything I have, we've had to earn. You know, my dad was a bartender and my mom was a maid. I didn't inherit any money. The only loan I ever started out with was a student loan. We still pay a mortgage on our home now. And, you know, people say you don't come from privilege. I do come from privilege. Not economic privilege, but I come from an extraordinary privilege.
These are some great pictures.
I was raised by a mother and a father who were married with each other. They loved us, and they told us that it didn't matter that she was a maid and my dad was a bartender. I lived in the one country on earth where even the son of a bartender and a maid could be anything he wanted.
Do you
even
hold
president.
on to that? Do you hold on to that? Does that help you understand what real people are going through? Your dad is a bartender.
Absolutely. Not only did I grow up paycheck to paycheck, I've lived paycheck to paycheck. You know, when Jeanette and I first got married, we lived paycheck to paycheck for a number of years. I know what it's like to lose the value of your home. We lost the value in our home, and we didn't do anything wrong. It's just the market went down. I owed over $100,000 in student loans. We're raising young children today. We know how expensive that is, but we also know how difficult it is to instill strong values in a culture where increasingly we're being rammed down our throats, values that are not the ones they teach in our church.
Your wedding photo. Is it true that you met as teenagers, you and Jeanette?
I was 19 and she was 17.
So did you know right away?
I did. I'm not sure she did.
How long did you date before you got
7
engaged?
years.
7 years.
I was
Okay.
in law school and in college, and I think she wanted to get married to someone who had a job.
Did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer?
You know, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, an NFL head coach, a lot of GM in the National Football League. And I think I just got led towards law school because I had a real interest in the law and in the process of making law. And I always had an interest in public service and in the political process. I didn't know I'd run for office. I started out in a small city commission. And I was 27 years old. I live in a city of 5,000 people. West Miami, it's called. We had 800 voters show up for my first election. I knocked on every door in that community. And then, you know, Hialeah is part of the district that I was in the state legislature. Again, small district. And we've earned it all every single time, and we'll earn this too.
Do you feel like, looking back, did the young Marco Rubio make any mistakes that you want to share with the constituents out there? Perhaps they can learn from?
Well, you know what? I wasn't a very good high school student, and that cost me a lot of money. Because I wasn't a good high school student, I didn't qualify for scholarships and things of that nature, so I had to take out some loans, and I had to pay those back, and it took a long time to do, and they were very expensive. I'd do that very differently, of course. And so once I started paying for school, I became a really good student, but not before then.
How about now that you're a dad? You've got 4 children, all pretty young, two girls in their teens and then 2 younger boys.
That's right.
How's this been for them coming out on that campaign trail? I mean, they seem like happy warriors, but it must be hard on your family.
You know, I think the absence away from home is tough on us. They've been able to be out on the road a little bit. You met them in New Hampshire. But God's been good to us. He's really protected us and our family and kept us together. And through this all, we're a stronger family. And my kids have had an extraordinary experience. They've seen America, and they've seen this process in a way that a lot of people never get to see.
Now, you've said that you're not running for Senate again. And we don't know what's going to happen in this presidential race, but if it doesn't work out for you in campaign 2016, any thoughts on where we might see Marco Rubio go?
Well, you know, I don't define myself by the office that I hold. Public service is what I do. It's not who I am. My most important job is a husband and a father, and I want to do that job as well as I can. And as far as my career, next January, I will either be the President of the United States or I'll be a private citizen. And there's nothing wrong with being a private citizen. There's nothing wrong with not being in politics. I want to serve. If America will give me a chance to serve, if Florida will give me a chance to serve, I want to be their president. And if God's will is something different, I'm sure it's really good for me.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And thank all of you. Live in Hialeah. Thanks to everyone at home as well for watching our special Kelly File edition on the road in Florida with Senator Marco Rubio. Good night.